All right, hello everyone who is joining us. Martina and I are excited to talk to you about stress today. So we will get started in just a couple of minutes. And for those of you that have already joined, if you just comment in the chat feature and let us know where you are joining us from so we can see, basically figure out what time zone you're in. Because
Yep.
so, Martina and I are in Hawaii, so it is 10 a.m. for us right now. We still have the whole day pretty much ahead of us.
Yep.
All right, we have Melissa joining from Kaneope. Awesome.
Hi, Melissa. I think I know this Melissa.
You do. Hi.
Yay, hi.
Awesome. All right. So we'll give it just another minute to see if any stragglers jump on. And we have Mom joining us from Eugene, Oregon. Hello, Mom. Thank you for being here. I love seeing some of the names that people use on their Zoom accounts, since obviously a lot of us started using it during COVID and meeting up with family and friends on Zoom. So
yeah, I have a lot of my clients end up with their kids' names on it. They come up as their kids' names because, their kids are using their iPads or their devices to do, work from home and school classes and stuff. And so they go on their parents' account and then they come up as their kid's name. And I'm like, oh, I guess they had class today.
Yes, I have actually seen that too with husbands' names or
yes.
wife's names. Yeah. So, all right. So Mom is Tisha. Hi, Tisha. You don't have to change that. You let us know. I'll write it down. Don't forget, Tisha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, well, it's 5 after, so let's go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and kind of start how we know each other. So when I moved to Hawaii in 2019, so a couple of years ago, I noticed that I was going through a bit of a stall in my progress. And so I ran a test, saw that I had high cortisol, but the test didn't tell me why. And that's why I reached out to Martina. Martina is a functional medicine practitioner. And over the course of 9 months or so, we got to the root of my problems and took care of that stress. And I know stress is kind of an overlooked topic when we think about health and wellness a lot. Most people go to nutrition and fitness. So that is why Martina and I are teaming up together so that she can share a little bit of what she shared with me when I was her client with all of you. So Martina, why don't you give us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So thank you, first of all, Amy, for organizing this, because this is really fun and I think a really good way to get some information out. I'm Martina Harms. I'm a physician assistant. I worked in emergency medicine for many years, suffered my own burnout, and figured out through functional medicine how I could get back to being the person that I wanted to be. And so studied through the Institute for Functional Medicine and School of Applied Functional Medicine to get where I am now, which is to help people heal from their own burnout, figure out the reasons that they're experiencing burnout, increase their energy, eliminate brain fog, help them with their weight loss goals, and just generally help people kind of get back to where they feel like they should be. I feel like we have an epidemic of feeling okay. And no one really does anything when they feel okay. It's only when they feel really, really sick that they want to do something about it. And then if they feel really great, then there's nothing to do. But we have a lot of people that just feel okay and they don't do anything about it. And so I would like to get people from feeling okay to feeling great, because I know what it's like. And that's my mission now, is to help people figure this out, because it is really hard. And stress is probably one of the biggest components to a lot of it, but especially weight loss.
That is so true. And I, as a master weight coach, a lot of clients come to me and they're ready to focus on their nutrition and their fitness. One thing that they do get when they're going through the program with me is that we do talk a little bit about stress and hormones and mindset, which I know you're going to be diving in to today, so I'm not going to spoil that. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Sure.
So basically the first thing I know a lot of people are probably wondering is, what are the overlooked causes of stress? Can you walk us through?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is to sort of like put a definition on it. So like what is stress? And the first thing is that it's not always just like one big catastrophic thing. It is any real or perceived threat to you. And so what does it do? It lets it sets off this cascade of events in your body that release different chemicals and tell your body how to respond. And so like the example that I like to give is, if let's pretend you're crossing the street and you step out into you step off the sidewalk and a car like whizzes by you and almost hits you. And so you get that like surge of adrenaline, your heart rate starts racing, you start breathing really heavy, you get all sweaty, your skin gets prickly, and it keeps you from getting killed. And so the car passes, everything kind of calms down. You still feel like really hyped up and kind of like buzzy. And then it kind of goes down. And as long as you just go back to your kind of like process what just happened, everything's okay. Your body's safe. You tell your body you're safe. Everything's good. You go on the rest of your day. You feel fine. If you have the same thing happen and you perseverate over it all day, you think about, oh my God, I almost died today. And you just stay in this chronic state of stress because you think I almost died today. That is going to keep you in this state of heightened awareness, hypervigilance. You're going to have that. Your adrenaline can only pump so long, and then cortisol takes over. Cortisol is, like what we associated with a stress chemical, but it's actually also an anti-inflammatory, and it's there to protect us and keep us alive, because it still thinks you are under attack. You might still get hit by a car, or you might be being chased by a tiger, right? So when we are continually thinking about things that are either stressful to us because there's something that is really actually stressful, or because it's something that we just continue to think about over and over and perpetually, it keeps us in this state. And instead of being, you stay in a fight or flight state instead of a rest and digest state. And that is what stress essentially is. And so when you are in this fight or flight state, all non-essential activity slows down. So your digestion gets very, very poor, because if you're running away from a tiger, why are you stopping to eat? Right? So your body doesn't know, your little reptilian brain doesn't know that there is no actual threat. It's a perceived threat that it's dealing with still. And so you're not going to have a great, as women, we're not going to have great menstrual cycles. They're going to be irregular. They're going to be heavy. We might have issues with fertility. For men, they might have erectile dysfunction. For both men and women, you will have issues with libido. And it's just that your body is prioritizing the things that keep you alive, and it's going to deprioritize anything that's kind of extra, like beautiful hair and nails and things like that. In terms of weight loss, your body's going to think that it needs to retain this energy, and it's going to keep this fat hanging around. And generally that fat is metabolically active. So I don't want to get too deep into that, but other reasons that people can have stress that they may not realize is things that are doing chronic cardio. People who are really addicted to cardio, and they just think I'm just going to run. And it's there's nothing that tells your brain more that you're being chased by a tiger than actually running. So things like that, where some exercise and increased activity is really good. There is good stress. That's the type of stress that builds resilience, that builds muscle, that helps your body adapt to change and challenges your immune system and things like that. It's just when we have this chronic state of increased cortisol, that's when it affects all of the other hormones that your body is trying to make to keep your body kind of metabolically regulated, and that's when things get off. So sources would be the chronic cardio thing, people not overtraining and not eating enough. That's a really big one for people, because they think that in order to be at a deficit, they need to have so many calories, and they'll focus on maybe their macronutrients, but they're not focusing on the quality of the food that they're eating. And so they're eating plenty of food, but they're not getting the nutrients that they need. That's really stressful for your body. Any kind of inflammation in your body, that can also be a big source of stress that you may not realize. So foods that you may be responding to, that's a normal food that is healthy and you would think that would be good for you to eat, your body, because maybe there's a period of leaky gut because of you had antibiotics at some point, or you had a lot of stress, and that in itself can cause leaky gut. And so particles of food that normally wouldn't be introduced to your immune system are being introduced to your immune system, and your immune system's like, danger, danger, this is not supposed to be here. And you start making antibodies. And so you have this like low grade simmering inflammation going on, and that's stressful for your body to deal with all the time. So those are the ones that I see a lot of in my practice, and I hear a lot about. So I know, Amy, you probably have some notes in there too, what you've dealt with and experienced through your process.
Yeah. Well, one of the main things that I know that I learned through you that I now pass on to my clients is especially the mindset piece. When you talk about continuing to think about the thing that startled you, and so your cortisol, your stress in the body doesn't come down. So I try to kind of coach them through why it's so important to think about ways to de-stress, because if you're eating clean and you're doing yoga as an act of recovery, but you're thinking about all of the things that are on your to-do list, or all of the things that went wrong, or that bad incident that almost happened, then you're kind of wasting your time almost. Your body's not going to be responding the way you want it to, because it's in a state of stress. But yeah, I think the number one thing that we see in the faster way is clients coming to us and they're still on that calorie in, calorie out mindset, and they're so intent on eating so little and then just working out all the time. And yeah, for some people that's okay, I guess, but for most of us, to use your word, we're going to burn out, and burning out is going to be the stress on the body. And yeah, it's just creates
especially
a cycle.
Especially with the types of food that we eat. You and I always talk about like eating whole foods and things like that. If you're eating a lot of kind of like quick or processed foods, you may be eating a lot of calories, but you're not consuming the nutrients that you need. So the number of calories or the macros that you're tracking, that might line up fine for you, and if it meets your macros kind of mindset, but that may not be what your body needs. Your body burns up magnesium when you're stressed. It burns up B vitamins when you're stressed, and fake foods don't have the necessary nutrients in them. And if you're only focusing on like enough carbohydrates, fat, and protein, and you're sort of missing the boat on the rest of the nutrients, which can be really hard to keep track of, you will end up depleted, especially if you're stressed, because you're going to burn up some of those vitamins that you need and minerals that you need the most in order to keep your body calm and be able to get back into that kind of rest and digest state.
Yeah, that kind of leads us to my next question, is the impact on the body when our body stays in that elevated stress and the cortisol stays elevated. What are some of the kind of big impacts that it has on a person's body?
So if when you talk about stress, again, it's whether it's perceived, whether it's real, there's a couple of things. One is the persistence of cortisol being elevated. And when cortisol is elevated, it is supposed to be anti-inflammatory. It's supposed to be calming something down. But when we keep it elevated all the time, it basically impairs your immune system, because you're trying to kind of like fight this invisible enemy. And so your body is, again, it's prioritizing its resources. If it thinks that you're going to, be killed by a tiger, it's not going to put out the necessary messengers to like fight off a cold or to, keep your gut lining intact and not causing leaky gut. So one of the big things is, leaky gut, impaired immune system. It wants you to keep your fat, because it wants you to have an energy source in case you are not able to get food. It means you to have enough energy to be able to burn something if you're continuing to run from a tiger. And so that's going to keep that, especially around the midsection. That's where people see it the most. And that's where people, that's the most dangerous type of fat too, is because it's metabolically active, and it creates its own demand for more cortisol. And so then it just repeats this cycle where you have the fat, you need more cortisol, you pump out more cortisol, then it makes you retain more fat. And so that's a big thing. And then the other one is that it can directly also cause inflammation in your body. And inflammation is something that your body, again, is trying to quench. Your body's trying to like do something about, and it's not going to if it continues to stay stressed, where the cortisol level is still high, because it still thinks you're in this state of emergency and it doesn't need to put out any fires right now. And so you just sort of in this vicious cycle of not taking care of yourself. Like your body is literally not taking care of itself because it's getting this input externally that it's not safe to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what happens.
So it kind of sounds like what you're saying is if our body is in a state of stress and the cortisol is elevated, that becomes its main priority. So anything else like keeping us from getting sick or helping us recover or heal things or burn fat, build muscle, those sorts of things, those become not priorities. So no matter what you're doing, if your body is in a state of stress, those other things are going to either not happen, like the fat burning and the
or total back burner.
Yeah, or you're not going to be able to get over colds, or you're going to find yourself sick often. So that's very interesting. And I know a lot of people like myself, I know that I was that person that thought, I moved to Hawaii, life is amazing. How can I be in a state of stress? So because I have always thought of the big monumental moments in life, some big event has happened, and didn't really understand the kind of the piling up and what can be going on, especially like you're talking about food sensitivities can add stress to our body, things like that. Gluten, dairy, alcohol, sugar, all of those things cause reactions and affect the stress. So what are some signs that people can look for if they think or just want to be more aware and as they listen to their body? What should they be looking for that might be a sign that they have an elevated stress in their body?
So one of the things that I hear a lot of, and I think you talk, I don't remember if this was with you, but I know a lot of people, I know I personally had this too, is dizziness, especially upon standing. If you go from sitting to standing, or you go from laying down to standing, and you immediately get that kind of like, ooh, I need to sit down, like I stood up too fast feeling, and it's happening pretty regularly, that's a pretty good sign that your adrenals are stressed, that you're not able to mount the chemical reaction that allows you to like maintain body posture and have the blood flow to your head. Because when you stand up, that's what's supposed to happen, right? And so that is a big one. People having sleep issues, and that one is like, this is a feed forward loop where you have, you're not getting enough sleep. So that's going to make your cortisol elevated. Your cortisol being elevated at inappropriate times is going to make it hard for you to sleep. So if you're waking up too early and you can't fall back asleep, like you wake up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and you can't go back to sleep, a lot of times that's because your cortisol is inappropriately rising at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's not supposed to rise until we get much closer to like sunrise. That's a big sign. When you wake up okay in the morning and then you just crash at like 4 o'clock, and then 9 o'clock rolls around and you're awake again and you're like, oh, like I'll do all these things now. You get that second wind. That's another really big sign that there's something funky going on with your cortisol. Or if you were just waking up and you don't feel rested when you wake up, even though you know you were in your bed for like 8 hours and you should be well rested. That's another big one. Appetite. So your appetite is off. Either you're having cravings for things like lots of sugar cravings, lots of feeling like you need to drink coffee all day. People who are really addicted to caffeine also have a tumultuous relationship with their cortisol levels, and trying to sort of like patch the problem and put the Band-Aid on it by supplementing with caffeine, which then creates more stress because it's more of a stimulant than anything else, and it's not nourishing you in any way. So you end up curbing your appetite and then just jacking yourself up with more caffeine, and that becomes a vicious cycle. Salty foods. Salt is one of the things, again, like kind of going back to the dizziness thing, salt is really supportive of your adrenal glands. And so when you are craving lots of salty foods, sometimes that can be a sign that your adrenals are asking for some help and some support. We've talked before about like electrolyte powders and things like that can be really helpful in your journey of figuring all this out and to support the organs that need it at the times that they need it. Other things, I mean, there's all kinds of symptoms that you can have from irregular cortisol. So things like your mood changes, people having headaches, heartburn, stress in particular can cause a lot of heartburn and increase it decreases the tone of the lower esophageal sphincter so that acid can reflux back up. Again, magnesium is part of that, and depleting magnesium because of stress kind of contributes to that whole thing. So you have, again, this whole sort of like vicious cycle of things that are happening. Getting sick more frequently, like we talked about, your immune system is not going to work at its best. Having high blood sugar, high blood pressure, irregular heartbeats, irregular menstrual cycles, having poor libido, having tense muscles. These can all be signs that you're having issues with stress and or cortisol.
And so when people are listening to this, and I know, myself and my mom in particular, Google doctor. So I have all these symptoms. The key really is when you're describing some of these symptoms, the key is when they're consistent, when you're not talking about a muscle cramp on Wednesday and then you don't have another muscle cramp for months. You're talking about if you have symptoms like this that are repeated and interfering with your ability to live life.
And it's like when it becomes sort of more persistent and chronic, where it's either every day or every week, or you find yourself kind of like trying to patch things up from the same problems every week. That's definitely a sign. And just to throw it in there, like there are plenty of very serious medical conditions that can have symptoms of those also. So, I'm not saying that everything is stress at all. I'm just saying that it is an overlooked cause for some of these things. And you should always go talk to your doctor if you're experiencing any of these things, because I would never want you to miss something, especially women. We're so good at like pushing things down and bottling it up and kind of putting it on the back burner and like dealing with everybody else in our lives before we deal with ourselves. But yeah, I want to make sure that throw that out there, that we should make sure that we take care of ourselves, go to your doctor, make sure there's not anything really serious going on, because there can be things that can require medical treatment that we don't want to miss. But let's say you go to your doctor and we get your labs are normal story, and you're like, okay, well, something's still not right. And like, what do we do next? So I'll throw that in there just to make sure I don't want to say that everything can be attributed to stress.
Right. And I guess listening to you, I know that in the Faster Way program, we definitely encourage people to focus on their sleep and their hydration and, fueling themselves well, eating as much as possible, but also being able to obviously lose weight, lose fat. That is the goal most of the time, build muscle. But we also encourage them to listen to their body, like you're saying. And if these things are chronically happening, then they should dig deeper. So what are some things that people can do on their own or in conjunction with their regular physician or a functional medicine practitioner like you would walk them through everything like you did for me and made my life so much better. But what are some things that that we can do that will help if we're feeling stressed, or even prevent us from having that overflow of stress? Some things that can help with that.
Yeah. So, so we talked about like how when you're in this state of stress, you're in this fight or flight state. And so really the objective is to spend more time in the rest and digest mode, in your parasympathetic nervous system, primarily activated mode. And so usually that means things like getting enough sleep, because sleep is going to be that restorative time, especially on days that you're training. If you're having trouble sleeping, you also want to just consider like when you're exercising. Some people don't do well when they exercise too close to bedtime, or they don't, or they're waking up like at 4 o'clock in the morning so that they can do a workout, and then they just are totally gassed and exhausted by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so paying attention to those things and prioritizing sleep is a really big one. Making sure, again, you're taking adequate rest, like you're talking about, like rest days. You really want to make sure you have those days where you let your body recover, and you should still be moving. I'm not saying like go lay on your couch all day. Do a yoga video, do a stretch, just move your body in a way that feels really good to you, that restores some balance for you. You want to kind of figure out like where your sweet spot is, like where you feel energized by your exercise and not depleted, because it's going to be different for everyone. Some people can tolerate much higher levels of really intense cardiac or cardio workouts, and some people can't. Things like simple things like journaling, writing down. I think one of the exercises that I think can be really helpful is to sort of like think about like what is stressing me out and what can I do about it? This meeting that I have to go to every week is really stressful. Like, what can I do around that meeting? if I make sure I take a bath that night, or if I do Epsom salts, or if I make sure I take a walk before I go to the meeting to kind of get some of the nervous energy out before I do the meeting. Just think about those things. Journaling just your general thoughts and feelings. Listening to music that you enjoy, reading books that you enjoy, the self-care type of things that don't necessarily need to take a lot of time. They don't have to be expensive. I'm not talking about like taking 100 supplements. I'm just talking about like taking care of yourself, so that you can be in that parasympathetic rest and digest healing mode more often. And it will also help you get into that mode a lot more easily. So when you are stressed out, you can take a deep breath and remember like, oh, I'm doing that shallow breathing thing that I do when I'm all stressed out. That doesn't help me feel any better. And I just do it because that's how I've been sort of programmed to breathe. And so once you have kind of reprogrammed your brain to go more easily into that parasympathetic mode, that's another way you can help. Another like really simple one, and one of my favorite ones, is doing legs up the wall. That's just like a really easy way to calm down your nervous system. You can lay there, you can take deep breaths, you can just kind of recalibrate. And by bringing the blood flow back up to your head and the upper half of your body where all those organs are doing all the work, it can feel really good and just be a good stress reliever and a reset little button that you can push to help you get back into that mode.
I like all of these suggestions, and I know, having gone through this with you, that there are a lot. And I know one thing, it's probably important for us to find the ones that work with our lifestyle, that feel good. I know for me, one of the ones that you shared with me, well, I guess it's kind of a combo of two that I still do, is the hot cold shower and the dry brushing before the shower. So I still use those two. So I know there are a lot of ones that you can share in terms of what we can do to help lower our stress and get into that parasympathetic state. And so with that, I will let people know that they can follow you on Instagram, because you are always sharing amazing tips for that, so they can get more information from you that way, and you'll be reaching out to them and sharing some information as well. I do see that we have a question from Melissa. She says, does our body's ability to manage stress decline as we get older, or is it more a matter of buildup, or is it tied to hormones at all? Great question.
Very good. Yes, this is a complicated one, but so yes and no. So our body's ability to manage stress, it can decline as we get older, but usually that is a function of being not as well nourished as we should be, and that can again be just due to like the food that we eat is just depleted. We don't have the nutrients in the foods that we eat anymore. Most of us kind of still need to rely on some quick and easy foods because we're rushing around and we need to eat something right here and now, and we didn't have time to prep it. And so we end up eating some foods that probably don't have the most comprehensive nutrition profiles. And then even the foods when we try really hard and we eat all the fruits and all the veggies, our soil's depleted. And so we don't have the building blocks to get to the proper amounts of the building blocks that we need to make the hormones that we have to make all these systems work properly. The other thing that happens is that with all of these hormone shifts, you're talking about like the HPA axis, which is like we call it the stress axis basically. So the hypothalamic pituitary, where's the last word? Adrenal axis. Yeah, there we go. Adrenal. And so those are like the three main ones, but then it goes thyroid, gonads. We have all these other hormones and they all impact each other. It's like, one of the schools that I go to, they call it the hormone soup dance. And so all of these things impact each other. And so if your body is spending all this energy making cortisol because you're all stressed out, it's not spending a whole lot of energy making estrogen, making testosterone, making any of these other or thyroid hormone, making all these other hormones that you need in order to be able to be resilient and be able to respond to these stresses. And so yes, it does decline as we age, but usually that's a function of not as great nutrition, usually some gut stuff going on, because over time we all end up with some dysbiosis or kind of an imbalance in the microbiome that can put things in a negative direction for us. And then also just knowing that as we age, we're going to have an increased demand for certain nutrients, and it's going to change over time, and our body is not being able to respond to those appropriately because it's not getting the input environmentally that it needs. So it's all tied together. The answer is it's all tied together.
Right. And I think what I also hear you saying is that because there are so many factors, it's not always as simple as doing some of the steps. Sometimes it's going to require that you dig deeper and you go to your regular doctor and you get some tests done. And if, for speaking for myself, you get that test and they kind of are like, oh, you're fine. But if you don't feel fine and you feel something is going on, it's a good idea to keep pressing, keep digging into it. Reach out to someone like you, a functional medicine practitioner that has a little bit more of that kind of whole body view in terms of taking care of the problem and addressing the problem instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it. And I know from my clients, a lot of them come, like I said, under eating, over exercising, and what we ate when we were teenagers, what we ate in our 20s and our 30s, like you're saying, it does catch up to us. And so I don't want to scare anyone and think that it's an inevitable like dead end that we're all going to run into as we get older. We can still do things, change our nutrition and make those whole food choices, and be very critical about our packaged items and make sure that in the package is not loaded with toxins that are just going to add to the stress and that sort of thing.
Or sugar, which is like the other big inflammatory troublemaker that really fouls us up all the time because they sneak it into everything.
Exactly. And then they call it by a different name to make it even harder on us. So so there are a lot of factors, obviously, but there are still a lot of things that we can do to undo some of the damage that we have maybe put ourselves into that situation. So it's not a, oh my goodness, I've done this to myself and now it's all over. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing.
No, that's the other thing too that I think that we have to remember is that none of these shifts happen very quickly in terms of like if you have like a big traumatic event, yes, that will cause immediate shifts in things with your cortisol, and there's going to be a recovery period from that. But everyone assumes that when you're in a car accident, there's a recovery period. When you have sort of chronic ongoing stress for a long period of time, doing yoga for 3 days is not going to fix that. So like, don't do the restorative activity and not give it enough of a chance to really let the changes happen, because it didn't happen overnight and it's not going to get better overnight. And so you have to continue to do those mindful practices to recalibrate your body in a way that gives it some grace and gives it some space to heal, because it's just not going to go away really fast. So you need to continually give your body the messages that like, you're safe, everything. I mean, that's another one you can do. You can do mantras in front of the mirror, just being like, I am safe. I'm feeling good today, or I choose to have energy today. I choose to feel good. I choose to be healing in this body. I'm learning every day. Whatever the mantra is that you want to tell yourself while you look at yourself in the mirror, I am worthy of this. I am worthy of feeling good. These are all things that our body listens to and internalizes, and every cell in your body can hear you when you say these things. And the same way they can hear the negative things that you say that I'm not even going to say. It hears the positive too. And those are also things that are really restorative in terms of the healing process and helping you feel good again.
Yeah, it's almost like whenever we talk about positive thoughts and keeping that positive mindset and what you think and say to yourself really does matter and has an impact on your stress, is when we talk to plants. Like when I personally I'm not successful with plants, but people are very plant people. They talk to their plants and they water them and they feed them and they talk to them because there's an impact on the plant and the growth and the health of it. So it's true for us as well. And so I guess on that note, because I want to end on a positive note, I don't see any other questions in the comments. If you do have a question, go ahead and pop it into the chat feature there, or go ahead and speak up if you feel comfortable, excuse me, speaking up. And we can address that before we wrap things up today. But I know that as you and I have talked, this is such a big topic that is overlooked by a lot of people. And a lot of people are just on the go, going 100 miles an hour all the time. Our bodies are not meant to do that.
No.
So it's important to be
Yeah.
thinking about it. Even when you don't feel stressed, it's important to be thinking about taking that time off, taking those breaks, fueling well, and just being nice to yourself. And like, what would you say to your kids, or what would you say to your best friend? That's how we should be speaking to ourselves.
Absolutely. And that with the other thing with the stress is that we also sort of culturally we like to use stress as like a badge of honor. It's like, oh, well, you're stressed out, let me tell you what happened to me this week. And we kind of like spar over who has the most stress. It's like, that's not healthy. No wonder we're so stressed. So I think that's another thing, is to kind of like let that go. You know, let's compete over who can have the most balanced, you know, day, and who can blow off the stress the best. Because we all have stress. We don't have to compete about it.
Right. Like, it's okay to acknowledge things, but as we share in the Faster Way community, we celebrate our accomplishments. We celebrate our biggest wins, and we want people to shout that out, because it does have such an impact on our mindset, which then impacts our stress, which then impacts our progress and our journey. And as we have spoken here today, our journey is ongoing. There's no end to it.
There is no end. Nope.
All right. Well, Melissa, this was great. Mahalo. I love the idea of moving from feeling okay to feeling great. We agree. All right. Thank you for joining us. If you would like to learn more from Martina, you can find her on Instagram. Martina, do you want to share your Instagram handle, your name?
Yes, I'm martina.harms.pa on Instagram. And if you're looking for my website, where you can find details about booking a free consultation with me and kind of going over what issues you're having, that's martinaharms.com. You can also just go to the Instagram account and find me through there. It's pretty easy to find me. But yeah, martinaharms.com or martina.harms.pa on Instagram.
And Martina does work remotely, so because we spent pretty much all of COVID meeting up weekly on video, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Martina can work with you and help you dig deeper if you feel that you need to. And you can find me on Instagram, Amy Caine Fitness. And if you are interested in learning more about the Faster Way, you can click the link in my bio and schedule a one-on-one, and we can chat about the program and your goals and what you might have going on right now. So we are very happy to have done this and shared our tips with you, and hope that you all have a great rest of your week as you head into the weekend.
Yes. Thank you, Amy, for organizing, and thank you everyone for attending. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.